I never expected my own brother to throw me out of our family's business. But there I was, standing in the parking lot of Mitchell Consulting Group, watching as security carried out my personal belongings while my brother Thomas screamed from the doorway. "You contribute nothing," he yelled, his face red with rage. "All you do is hide in your office with your spreadsheets and your client meetings. I'm the one who built this company into what it is today. I'm Emily Mitchell, 34, and until 10 minutes ago I was the chief operating officer of the consulting firm our father had built from nothing." Thomas, my older brother by 2 years, had always been the loud one, the showy one, the one who commanded attention in every room. I was quieter, more detail-oriented, the one who actually kept the business running while Thomas glad-handed clients at expensive lunches. "The board agrees with me," Thomas continued, waving a stack of papers. "They've voted to remove you as COO. You're fired, effective immediately. Maybe now we can finally turn this company around." I couldn't help but laugh, which only made him angrier. "Something funny about losing your job, Emily? About being exposed as the deadweight you are?" "No," I replied calmly, taking my box of belongings from the embarrassed security guard. "I'm just wondering how long it will take you to figure it out." "Figure what out?" Thomas sneered. "That you've been riding my coattails for years? That without me you'd be nothing?" I smiled, adjusting my designer blazer, the one I'd bought with my own money, not the company credit card Thomas loved to abuse. "You'll see. Good luck, brother dear. You're going to need it." His face twisted with confusion, but I was already walking to my car. Behind me, I could hear him ordering the security guards to make sure I never entered the building again. If he'd been paying attention, he might have noticed I hadn't turned in my laptop or my company phone. But Thomas never was good with details. To understand how we got here, we need to go back 3 years. Our father, James Mitchell, had built Mitchell Consulting from scratch, turning it into a $50 million business through hard work and brilliant client relationships. When he decided to step back, he made Thomas CEO and me COO, telling us to run it together. "You balance each other," he'd said. "Thomas has the flash, Emily has the substance. Together, you're unstoppable." But Thomas never saw it that way. To him, I was just the little sister playing at business, while he was the rightful heir to the Mitchell empire. Never mind that I had an MBA from Wharton while he'd barely finished his bachelor's degree. Never mind that I'd worked my way up through every department while he'd started at the top. Never mind that our biggest clients specifically requested to work with me. No, in Thomas's mind, he was the star and I was just living in his shadow. Problems started small. Thomas began excluding me from key meetings. He hired his college friends for senior positions without consulting me. He took credit for my ideas in board presentations. I documented everything, just as our father had taught us. "In business," Dad always said, "your memory can fail you, but paperwork never lies." What Thomas didn't know, what he'd never bothered to learn, was that I'd spent the last 3 years quietly protecting the company from his worst impulses. When he tried to rush into risky investments, I created separate LLC entities to limit our exposure. When he wanted to cut corners on client deliverables, I ensured our contracts had ironclad quality guarantees. And most importantly, when he started talking about pushing me out 6 months ago, I made sure all our major client contracts were structured through those LLCs companies that I personally owned. The morning after my dramatic exit, I woke up to 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. Most were from Thomas, starting with angry threats and gradually becoming more panicked as reality set in. "What did you do? The clients are saying their contracts are with some other company? Call me now." I took my time getting ready, enjoying a leisurely breakfast before calling our biggest client, Stevenson Global. Their CEO, Barbara Stevenson, had always preferred working with me anyway. "Emily," she answered warmly, "I just got the strangest call from your brother. Something about transferring our contract back to Mitchell Consulting?" "Yes, I heard about that," I replied. "But as you know, your contract is with Mitchell Strategic Solutions LLC, which is a separate entity." I wanted to assure you that nothing will change with your service delivery. Thank goodness, Barbara sighed. No offense, but your brother, well, let's just say we wouldn't have signed with Mitchell Consulting if you weren't involved. I appreciate that, Barbara. Actually, I'm planning to launch my own consulting firm. Would you be interested in hearing about it? Absolutely. Send me the details right away. By noon, I'd spoken with our top 5 clients, all of whom were eager to follow me. Thomas must have figured out something was wrong because he showed up at my house, pounding on the door. Open up, he shouted. What did you do to my clients? I opened the door, enjoying his disheveled appearance. His expensive suit wrinkled, his perfectly styled hair a mess. Your clients? I think you'll find they're my clients, actually. Check the contracts. This is impossible, he sputtered. Those LLCs, they're part of Mitchell Consulting. Actually, they're not. They're independent entities that I established to protect the company from your riskier decisions. The board approved their creation, not that you ever read the minutes of those meetings. Thomas's face went from red to white. You planned this? No, Thomas. You planned this. I just made sure I was prepared for when you finally showed your true colors. I handed him a folder. These are the client contracts. As you can see, they're all with companies I own. Companies you just fired. He flipped through the papers, his hands shaking. This is theft. I'll sue you. For what? Everything was done legally, with board approval. While you were busy taking clients to expensive dinners on the company card, I was quietly making sure our actual business interests were protected. Dad taught us both how to do that, remember? You just never paid attention. Dad! Thomas laughed bitterly. Dad always liked you better anyway. Always praised your attention to detail while criticizing my impulsive decisions. He was trying to help you become a better businessman, but you were too busy playing the role of big shot CEO to listen. The board will never stand for this. The board? I smiled. You mean the friends you appointed who know nothing about running a business? Good luck with that. Oh, and you might want to look into the company finances. Since you fired the person who actually managed the money, you might find some surprises. Thomas's face went from white to gray. What do you mean? Just that your expensive tastes and risky investments haven't gone unnoticed. The quarterly reports are due next week. Should be interesting reading. He staggered back, finally understanding the magnitude of his mistake. Emily, we can talk about this. Come back to the company. We can work something out. Like you worked something out when you had security throw me out? When you humiliated me in front of the entire staff? I shook my head. No, Thomas. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. Over the next few weeks, Thomas's carefully constructed world began to crumble. Without me there to manage the finances and smooth over his mistakes, the true state of Mitchell Consulting became clear. His extravagant spending had left the company cash poor. His rushed decisions had created massive liabilities. And without the revenue from the clients that were actually contracted through my LLCs, the company was in serious trouble. The board members he'd appointed, mostly friends who'd expected cushy positions, turned on him quickly when they realized they might be liable for his mismanagement. They demanded his resignation, but by then it was too late. Meanwhile, I launched my own firm, Mitchell Strategic Consulting. Most of our old clients followed me, attracted by the stability and professionalism they'd always appreciated. I hired several key employees who'd been frustrated with Thomas's leadership style, including our best project managers and analysts. 3 months after my dramatic exit, Thomas showed up at my new office. He looked terrible. His designer suit replaced by off-the-rack, his expensive watch missing. The bank is foreclosing, he said without preamble. They're calling in the loans. Mitchell Consulting will be bankrupt by the end of the month. I know, I replied. They called me yesterday to discuss acquiring the assets. His head snapped up. You're buying the company? Just the parts worth saving. The brand name, some of the intellectual property, the client relationships that haven't already moved to my new firm. Emily. His voice cracked. I'm your brother. You can't just what, Thomas? Can't protect myself from your ego? Can't build something successful without you? Can't do exactly what you tried to do to me? He slumped in the chair across from my desk. I didn't. I never thought. That's right. You never thought. You were so convinced of your own importance that you never bothered to learn how the business actually worked. Dad tried to teach us both, but you only wanted the glory, not the responsibility. Help me, he whispered. Please. I've got nothing left. Sandra's talking about divorce. The kid's private school is calling about unpaid tuition. I looked at my brother, really looked at him. The arrogant, swaggering CEO was gone, replaced by a broken man who'd finally realized how much he'd lost. I'll make you a deal, I said finally. I'll hire you as a consultant. Not an executive, not a director, a consultant. You'll start at the bottom and work your way up, learning everything you should have learned years ago. You want me to work for my little sister? He tried to sound angry, but the fight was gone from his voice. No, I want you to work for yourself. To prove that you can be more than just a title and an expensive suit. Dad saw potential in both of us, Thomas. It's time you lived up to yours. He was quiet for a long moment. And if I refuse? Then good luck with the bankruptcy proceedings. I hear the trustees can be quite thorough in their investigations of executive spending. 2 days later, Thomas accepted my offer. It wasn't easy for either of us. His ego took a massive hit having to report to managers younger than him. He struggled with the detailed work he'd always dismissed as beneath him. But slowly something changed. Without the pressure of trying to be the big-shot CEO, Thomas actually began to learn. He started asking questions instead of making assumptions. He paid attention in training sessions instead of playing with his phone. And gradually, he began to understand what Dad had tried to teach us all along, that real business success comes from substance, not show. 1 year after my exit from Mitchell Consulting, I sat in my office reviewing our quarterly reports. Mitchell Strategic Consulting had tripled in size. We'd acquired the valuable assets of the old company for pennies on the dollar. And Thomas? He'd just completed his first successful project as a junior consultant. Dad called me that evening. I heard about Thomas's project, he said. You were right to do what you did. You knew, didn't you? I asked. About the LLCs, about my preparations? He chuckled. I taught you both how to protect yourselves in business. Thomas never listened, but you did. I'm proud of you, Emily. Not just for succeeding, but for giving your brother a chance to learn from his mistakes. He's different now, I said. Actually doing the work instead of just taking the credit. That's because he finally understands what I tried to tell you both. Success isn't about who has the biggest title or the corner office. It's about knowing your business inside and out, protecting what matters, and being prepared for anything. After I hung up, I watched through my office window as Thomas led a client meeting in one of the conference rooms. He was focused, engaged, actually listening instead of just waiting for his turn to speak. The expensive suits and flashy watches were gone, replaced by something more valuable: real knowledge and earned confidence. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies, but about showing them a better way. Thomas had tried to push me out of our family business, but in doing so, he'd only succeeded in pushing himself toward the lessons he'd always needed to learn. And me? I'd built something stronger, better, more sustainable than what we'd had before. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I'd paid attention to the lessons our father taught us. Because I'd understood that real success comes from substance, not show. Thomas still has a long way to go, but he's learning. And every time he masters a new skill or successfully completes a project, I see a glimpse of the brother Dad always believed he could be. That's the thing about karma. Sometimes it doesn't just punish. Sometimes it teaches. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it helps rebuild what was broken, making it stronger than before. As for those client contracts that Thomas never bothered to read carefully, they're framed in my office now, a reminder that success often comes not from grand gestures or bold moves, but from quiet preparation and careful attention to detail. Just like Dad always taught us.